The man Time forgot. The hallway was too bright for how heavy his chest felt. White lights hummed above, bouncing off glass walls and polished floors. People walked past him with quick steps and louder voices, holding folders, phones, and confidence. He stood near the end of the hall, clutching a small paper bag he had prepared himself. Inside it was something simple, something he believed in, though no one else seemed to care. A screen on the wall flashed names. Each name was called once. Each person stood, smiled, and walked through the glass door. His name never appeared. He checked the screen again, then the paper he held, then the time. A younger man brushed past him and whispered, "You're still here." He did not answer. He had been in rooms like this before. Waiting rooms, interview rooms, offices where people nodded but never listened. He had learned how to wait quietly, how to hope without showing it. The glass door opened again. A voice called another name, not his. This was the moment when something inside him tightened, not with anger, but with a deep, familiar fear. The fear that this door would close the same way all the others had. This was the man Time forgot. A security worker approached him with a polite smile that felt practiced. "Sir, can I help you?" He explained why he was there. The worker glanced at a tablet, then paused. "I don't see you scheduled," the worker said carefully. "I was told to wait," he replied. The worker nodded, but his eyes showed doubt. "This session is for selected candidates only." The word only hit harder than expected. Nearby, two younger people spoke in low voices. One laughed. The other said, "They're still letting people like that try?" The man pretended not to hear, though every word stayed with him. He stepped away from the door, holding his bag tighter. The hallway suddenly felt longer, colder. As he walked out, he caught his reflection in the glass. His shoulders were sloped. His hair had gone gray without asking. His eyes still held ideas, but the world no longer looked into them. Outside, the city moved fast. Buses roared. Phones rang. People rushed forward without looking back. He stood still. Years ago, doors had opened for him with less effort. Now, even standing near one felt like a mistake. As he walked away, he did not feel angry. He felt erased. And as the building faded behind him, the truth followed quietly. Time had not stopped him. People had decided he was done. He remembered being young and tired at the same time. Life had asked too much of him too early. Loss came before he learned how to name it. Responsibility arrived before he was ready to carry it. When others his age worried about dreams, he worried about meals. When others planned futures, he planned survival. He learned fast how to work long hours, how to stay quiet when spoken down to, how to accept blame even when it wasn't his. People praised him then. They said he was strong for his age. They said he would go far. He believed them, but strength, he learned, does not protect you from mistakes. It only helps you live through them. His first steady job came when he was barely grown. He showed up early, stayed late, asked questions. Sometimes he asked the wrong ones. One day he spoke up about a problem others ignored. The room went silent. A manager frowned. 2 days later, he was called in and told he wasn't a good fit. He walked out holding a box of his things, shocked but hopeful. Surely another chance would come. It did. Then another loss. Each time he learned something new. Each time the world became less patient. By the time he realized effort alone was not enough, time had already started walking ahead of him. Leaving home felt like freedom at first. He believed distance would change everything. New streets, new people, new chances. He told himself this was the beginning. The city welcomed him with noise and hunger. Jobs were easy to find but hard to keep. Work was long and pay was short. He shared rooms with strangers, ate meals standing up, slept light. Still, he believed in forward motion. As long as he was moving, he thought, life could not trap him. His second major job ended during a meeting. A simple disagreement turned sharp. Words he thought were honest were called disrespect. He was escorted out before lunch. That night, he sat on his bed and stared at the wall. The room smelled like old paint and broken dreams. He promised himself he would learn when to stay silent. He did, but silence had its own cost. He took smaller jobs, lower pay, less respect. He told himself it was temporary. Weeks turned into months, months into years. People stopped asking about his plans. They began asking why he hadn't figured it out yet. He kept working, kept trying. But somewhere along the road, freedom stopped feeling like a choice and started feeling like exile. The third firing hurt the most because he thought he had done everything right. He arrived early, stayed late, followed rules, smiled when spoken to. He kept his thoughts to himself and his head down. One afternoon, a problem appeared, a mistake in the system. He noticed it before anyone else. He fixed it quietly. Later, the mistake was discovered anyway. Questions were asked. Fingers pointed. When he tried to explain, he was told, "You should have followed procedure." Procedure had never protected him before. He was dismissed with kind words and empty praise. "You're capable," they said. "Just not here." Walking home, he felt something shift. Not break, but bend. He realized then that effort did not guarantee safety. That loyalty did not buy patience. That time did not reward endurance. Still, he did not quit. He found another job, and another. Each restart came with less hope and more fear. Each loss made his name lighter, easier to forget. Friends stopped checking in. Family offered advice instead of help. He nodded, thanked them, kept going. But the question followed him everywhere. How many times can a man start over before the world stops watching? Starting over became a skill. He learned how to rebuild without excitement. How to smile through interviews that already felt decided. How to accept positions far below his ability. He told himself that dignity lived in effort, not titles. Some days he believed it. Other days, humiliation sat heavy in his chest. Especially when younger supervisors spoke to him slowly, as if age had stolen his understanding. He said nothing. At night, he worked on ideas. Small ones, quiet ones, ideas that made sense to him. He sketched plans on scraps of paper. Tested methods in borrowed spaces. He dreamed carefully now, afraid of disappointment. One idea showed promise. Something simple, something useful. He shared it with a friend. The friend nodded politely and changed the subject. He shared it at work. Laughter followed. "You're thinking too small," someone said. He smiled, but the words stayed. Thinking small had kept him alive. Thinking big had cost him everything. He kept refining the idea anyway. Because starting over had taught him one thing clearly. If he stopped trying, there would be nothing left of him to forget. The small business began quietly. No announcement, no celebration. He worked after hours using borrowed tools and leftover energy. He sold to anyone who would listen. First, only a few came, then a few more. For the first time in years, something grew instead of collapsed. He felt careful joy, the kind that does not trust itself. Then someone noticed. A larger operation nearby began offering the same thing, cheaper and louder. They had signs, ads, connections. Soon, complaints followed. Permits were questioned. Rules were enforced strictly. One morning, officials arrived. Papers were handed over. Explanations were ignored. He was shut down by evening. Standing in the empty space, he felt familiar shame. The kind that does not scream, but settles quietly. He packed his things alone. People who once praised his effort avoided eye contact. Others said, "That's business." He nodded. That night, he counted his losses. Not just money, but belief. He wondered if time was warning him. Then he woke up and started again. Because stopping had never saved him before. Going back felt heavier this time. He returned to places he had promised himself he would never need again. Old couches, old favors, old apologies. Each step backward made people more comfortable with his failure. "Well," someone said, "at least you tried." The word tried sounded like an ending. He took whatever work he could find. Cleaning, lifting, fixing, anything that paid. He listened more, spoke less. Years passed like this. Then came the bigger chance. Partnership. A real space. Real support. He poured everything into it. Savings. Time. Pride. For a while it worked. He smiled again. Laughed more freely. Slept better. Then disaster came without warning. A fire. An accident. A loss no one could fully explain. Insurance failed. Support vanished. Promises dissolved. He stood in the ruins watching smoke rise. This time he did not cry. He simply nodded, as if confirming something he had already known. That night, he sat in silence and asked himself a question he had avoided for years. What if this never gets better? Age arrived without asking. One morning he noticed how long it took to stand. Another day, how quickly his energy faded. Interviews changed tone. Smiles grew forced. Questions circled around his age without naming it. Are you comfortable learning new systems? Do you think you can keep up? He answered calmly. He stopped getting calls back. Younger people filled roles he had trained for years ago. They spoke confidently, unaware of how quickly the world could turn. He watched them pass. The quiet years followed. Not dramatic, not tragic, just empty. Work without recognition. Days without progress. He became someone people described with phrases like, still trying and good effort. He felt himself fading in conversations. But inside something hardened. Not anger, resolve. He returned to his simplest idea. The one that had survived every failure. He refined it patiently, removing everything unnecessary. He tested it again. Improved it again. He stopped asking for permission. When he was ready, he knocked on doors. Many closed. Some did not open at all. He kept knocking. Rejection became routine. He learned how to accept it without flinching. How to thank people who dismissed him. How to walk away without hope or bitterness. He counted refusals, not as failure but as proof of movement. Each door taught him something. Finally, one door paused. The person inside listened, asked questions, did not laugh. The test was offered. He left the room without celebrating. Experience had taught him patience. Days later, a call came. The test worked. Quietly, demand followed. Slowly, interest grew. People began asking questions. The same questions they once mocked. He watched carefully. When offers came, he chose instead of begging. The hallway from the beginning returned in his mind. The glass door. The screen. This time, his name was called. As he walked forward, he did not feel victory. He felt calm. Time had not forgotten him. It had simply waited. And so had he. The first large order came in a plain email with no excitement in it. He read it 3 times to make sure it was real. A week ago, people had acted like he was invisible. Now, someone wanted what he made, enough to pay rent, enough to breathe. He didn't celebrate. He cleaned his small workspace like a person preparing for judgment. He worked through the night. He measured carefully, watched the clock, and listened to the city outside. Every sound felt like a warning. His hands moved with skill, but his mind kept replaying old failures. He kept thinking, something will happen. It always does. In the morning, he carried the finished order on a bus, holding it close like a fragile truth. The bus shook. A young passenger bumped into him, then laughed and said, "Old man, relax." He did not argue. He only tightened his grip. At the delivery desk, the worker checked the package, then nodded. "Good," the worker said. "We may need more." The word more landed like a door cracking open. He walked out feeling taller but also afraid. Because when life starts to turn, it turns fast. And fast things can fall even faster. More orders came, but they didn't come with respect. They came with pressure. A company manager called him into a small meeting room. The manager smiled like a person who already owned the conversation. "We like your product," the manager said. "But can you scale? Can you keep up with demand?" He heard the hidden meaning. "Can you keep up at your age?" He answered calmly, "Yes." The manager slid a contract across the table. The words were long, the terms were heavy, and the pay looked smaller than it should have been. It was a trap dressed as an opportunity. He almost signed. Old fear pushed him to accept anything. Then he remembered the hallway, the laughter. The word expired. He asked questions. The manager's smile thinned. "You're being difficult," the manager said. He felt the old pattern returning: speak up, get punished. This time he did not back down. "I'm being careful," he replied. The manager leaned in. "Careful people don't get far." He stood up and took the contract with him and signed. Outside, his hands shook. He had protected himself. But he had also made an enemy. After that meeting, the calls slowed. Emails went unanswered. A week passed. Then two. It felt like the world was correcting itself, pushing him back into silence. He did not beg. He worked anyway. He used the quiet to improve his process. He wrote steps on paper. He practiced speed without losing quality. He tested new ways to package and deliver. He trained his hands to move like they belonged to a younger man. One evening, he met a former coworker at a food spot. The coworker looked at him with surprise. "I heard you're trying again," the coworker said. "I am," he replied. The coworker laughed softly. "You never stop. But people don't like late success. It makes them uncomfortable." That sentence sat in his chest. Late success meant the world had been wrong. The owner invited him to come on a Saturday morning. He arrived early, holding samples in his paper bag like before. The cafe smelled like fresh bread and hot coffee. It felt warm, like a place that still believed in people. The owner tasted what he brought, then raised an eyebrow. "This is good," the owner said. "Where did you learn to do this?" "Life," he answered. The owner smiled. "I like that. We'll test it for 1 week." It was not a contract, not a big deal, just a chance. He left feeling hopeful, then stopped himself. Hope had embarrassed him before. A few days later, he returned to check the results. The owner looked surprised. "People asked for it again," the owner said. "They came back." The words hit him like a soft punch. They came back. But before he could breathe, another person walked into the cafe. A loud supplier with shiny shoes and a confident grin. The supplier glanced at him and said, "Oh, you're the one making this?" The owner nodded. The supplier laughed. "That's cute, but you'll regret it when the bigger players notice." The owner's smile faded slightly. The man felt the old fear rise. Success was starting to show. And when success shows, predators smell it. The next week, a social media post from the cafe went viral. Not huge, just enough to pull attention. People commented, asked questions, and shared it. Someone wrote, "Who made this? It tastes like real effort." He read the comments late at night, feeling strange. Praise felt unfamiliar now, like wearing clothes that didn't fit. Then the messages came. A delivery app wanted to feature the product. A local store wanted a shelf deal. 2 restaurant owners wanted meetings. The same week, a complaint arrived at the cafe about health standards. Even though nothing had changed, he understood the pattern. Someone wanted him out. He went to the cafe to speak with the owner. The owner looked nervous. "They said we might get inspected," the owner whispered. "I don't want trouble." He nodded slowly. "I'll handle my side," he promised. At home, he cleaned everything twice. He printed receipts. He organized records. He prepared like he was going to court, not business. During the inspection, an officer checked items carefully, then paused. "Your documents are correct," the officer said. Relief rushed through him. Then the officer added, "But people are watching you now. Expect more." That night he lay awake. The world had noticed him. And being noticed was dangerous. He decided to make the idea sharper, simpler, and harder to steal. He removed extra choices and focused on one signature version, the best one. He improved the taste, the process, and the packaging until it felt like a message. He wasn't just selling an item. He was selling proof that late effort still mattered. A friend suggested a big move. "You should pitch to the city chain," the friend said. "If they say yes, you're set." He hesitated. Big chains meant big power. Big power meant big traps. But he also knew this. Staying small forever could keep him safe, but it could also keep him forgotten. So he booked a meeting. On the day of the pitch, he wore his cleanest shirt and practiced his words in the mirror. He kept his voice steady, but his stomach twisted. Inside the chain office, a panel of 3 listened. 2 looked bored. 1 looked curious. He explained his product, his story, his process. He did not beg. He simply offered. When he finished, the bored one said, "This is nice, but we need something modern, something trendy." The curious one leaned forward. "How many rejections have you had?" they asked. He blinked. "Too many to count." The curious one smiled. "Then you're still hungry." After the meeting, he received a message. "Second round tomorrow." He should have felt joy. Instead, he felt fear, because tomorrow meant the hunt was real. The second round was not about taste. It was about control. A manager offered him a deal that sounded good at first. Funding, space, faster growth. Then the manager added, "We'll need full ownership of the recipe and brand." He stared at the paper. "If you don't agree," the manager said, "someone else will. That's how this works." He felt the hallway again. The feeling of being erased. The temptation to accept anything. But a voice in his mind said, "If you give away your last idea, you become empty again." He asked for time. The manager sighed. "Time is not your friend," the manager said. "You're not young." He left the building holding the paper. Outside, rain began to fall, light but steady. Felt like the city was trying to wash him away. That night, he called the cafe owner and 2 small restaurant owners. He offered them a fair partnership, no ownership tricks, no trap contracts. He built a plan that kept him in control. The next day, he returned to the chain office and declined the deal. The manager's face hardened. "You'll regret this," the manager said. "We can bury small businesses." He nodded slowly. "Maybe," he said, "but you can't bury something people already love." As he walked out, his phone buzzed. A new message. "We heard about you. Let's talk." The doors were multiplying. So were the enemies. For the first time in years, he felt close to quitting. Not because he was failing, but because success was exhausting. He was doing deliveries, meetings, calls, and production all at once. His body ached. His eyes stayed tired. His hands shook sometimes, not from fear, but from overwork. One night, he dropped a container, cracked on the floor, spilling the work of hours. He stared at the mess like it was a sign from the universe. He sat down and whispered, "I can't do this." He thought about stopping, going back to quiet jobs, becoming invisible again. Invisible was safer. Then he received a voicemail from a customer. The voice sounded young, but shaky. "I just want to say thank you," the person said. "I felt like my life was over. But your story, it made me try again." He held the phone in his hand for a long time. His story was not famous. Not yet. But it was already reaching someone. He stood up, cleaned the mess, and continued. The next morning, he met with a small investor. The investor said, "I don't want your brand. I want your growth. I want you to stay the owner." He didn't trust it at first. Then the investor added, "People like you scare big companies. That's why you're being pushed." He swallowed. A new fear formed. Maybe this was bigger than business. Maybe the world truly did not like late winners. He agreed to a small test partnership with the investor, nothing huge, nothing risky. Just enough to rent a better workspace and hire 1 helper for deliveries. On the first day in the new space, the helper arrived. A quiet young adult with sharp eyes and fast hands. "I work hard," the helper said. "No talk." He appreciated that. They produced twice as much in one day as he could alone. For the first time, he felt his lungs open. Then a letter arrived. It looked official. It claimed he owed money for old business taxes from years ago, debts he had already settled. The amount was huge. The deadline was cruel. His stomach dropped. The investor read it and frowned. "This is pressure," the investor said. "Someone is trying to stop your growth." He felt anger rise, slow and heavy. Not wild anger, the kind that waits. He went to the office listed on the letter. A clerk checked records and said, "This claim is incorrect. We have no active debt for you." Relief came fast, but it wasn't clean. It left behind one clear truth. Someone had forged fear. As he walked out, he noticed a man in a dark jacket watching him near the gate. When their eyes met, the man turned away. He followed at a distance, heart pounding. The man entered a building with the chain company logo. His hands tightened into fists. Now he knew. They weren't just competing. They were hunting. He didn't sleep that night. He planned. He gathered proof of the false letter. He saved messages. He recorded timelines. He did it quietly, like a person building a shield. The next day, he met the cafe owner and the restaurant owners. He explained what was happening without drama. "They want me tired," he said. "They want me scared. They want me to sell." The cafe owner swallowed. "What do we do?" He looked around the table and felt something new. Not loneliness, but a team. "We keep it honest," he said. "And we make it public." They posted a simple story online. No insults, no accusations, just facts about starting late and being pushed. People responded fast. More than he expected. Some shared their own stories. People wrote, "I'm 41 and I thought it was over." Others said, "I'm 55 and I'm starting again." The message grew beyond his product. It became a mirror. Then a local news page asked for an interview. He almost refused. Visibility had always been dangerous. But he remembered the hallway. He remembered how silence made him easy to erase. He agreed. During the interview, he didn't cry. He didn't shout. He just said, "I failed many times. I kept going. That's all." That calm honesty hit harder than drama. After the interview, orders doubled. And the chain company sent a final message. "Name your price." He stared at the words. Now the real test was here. He met the chain company in a neutral place, a cafe with cameras and witnesses. The manager arrived smiling too wide. "You've built something impressive," the manager said. "Let's end this nicely." The manager offered money. A lot. But the offer came with one line. Full ownership transfer. The manager leaned in. "You're older," the manager whispered. "Take this and rest. You can't fight forever." The words were meant to sound kind. They felt like a burial. He looked at the manager and saw the truth clearly. They didn't want his success. They wanted the story erased. He slid the paper back. "No," he said. The manager's smile dropped. "You're making a mistake." He stood up. "No," he replied. "I'm making a choice." Outside, the air felt sharp. The city sounded louder. The investor called and said, "We can expand now, but it will get messy." He looked at his hands. They had built, lost, rebuilt, and survived. "I can handle messy," he said. That week, they launched with 3 small partners, all local, all fair. A small billboard went up with his product and a simple line. "Late does not mean done." He watched people stop and read it. Some smiled. Some frowned. Some stared too long, like the message was accusing them. Then his helper said, "Boss, someone is copying us." His chest tightened. Copying meant they were threatened. And threatened people don't play clean. A copy appeared online with a similar look, similar words, and a cheap version of what he made. People began asking if he was the one copying. He felt sick. The chain company had money and reach. They could confuse the world faster than he could explain. He called the cafe owner and restaurant owners. "We need proof," he said. "We need the truth to stand on its own." They gathered timestamps, recipes, messages, and early reviews. They built a clear trail. The investor helped contact a legal group. The legal worker listened and said, "You have a case, but court is slow. Public truth moves faster." So he did the hardest thing. He spoke again. He went live online. His face filled the screen. His voice stayed steady. "I'm not here to fight," he said. "I'm here to be seen. This is mine. I'm not young. I didn't win early, but I built this with my hands." Comments flooded. People shared the live video. Others tagged news pages. Someone wrote, "This is my father's story." Another wrote, "This is my future if I quit." The chain company posted a statement calling him confused and unstable. That word, unstable, hit him like an old slap. They weren't just attacking the product. They were attacking his dignity. He shut off the camera and sat in silence. Then his helper whispered, "Boss, the big news station is here." His heart pounded. The storm had reached the top of the sky. In the interview room, the reporter asked one question that cut deeper than any contract. "Why did they target you so hard?" He paused. Then he said the truth he had avoided for years. "Because I remind people of what they fear," he said. "That time does not decide who wins. Quitting does." The reporter leaned forward. "But you were rejected so many times. Why keep going?" He looked at the camera. "Because failing in public doesn't mean you're finished," he said. "It only means people saw you fall." The station aired the story that night. It wasn't just about a product. It was about age, pressure, and silent shame. Then the biggest twist arrived. A former worker from the chain company contacted him privately. The worker sent messages, files, and internal notes. They showed a plan, real proof, that the company had been watching him for months. They had created false letters, pushed inspections, and made copies on purpose. There were even notes about killing the late winner narrative. He stared at the files until his eyes burned. So it was true. They weren't competing with him. They were competing with his meaning. If he won, people would stop believing the lie that life ends at a certain age. If he won, others would try again. And that terrified them. The investor read the files and said, "This changes everything." His helper asked, "What now?" He took a slow breath. "Now," he said, "we stop hiding." And as he spoke, he remembered the hallway from chapter 1. Now he understood that hallway was never about a job. It was about who gets remembered. They took the evidence to the public carefully. No insults, no rage, just truth step by step. The chain company tried to deny it. Then they tried to settle it. Then they tried to silence the former worker. But the internet moved faster than their lawyers. People began calling him an inspiration. News pages called him a symbol. Strangers asked for photos. Felt strange. Because he knew the part nobody liked to mention. The years when he ate little, slept badly, and failed loudly while people looked away. Overnight fame is a lie, he realized. It is built on years nobody claps for. A talk show invited him. He sat on a couch under bright lights, just like the hallway lights, and the host said, "You made it." He smiled politely. "I didn't make it fast," he said. "I just didn't disappear." That line went viral. People printed it on shirts. Teens repeated it online like it was new. But he knew it wasn't new. It was old wisdom that modern life had tried to bury. The chain company finally backed off. The copy products vanished. The pressure letters stopped. The city breathed again. And yet, he did not feel revenge. He felt a quiet sadness for how many people had been erased by the same lie. After the show, he stepped outside alone and looked up at the night sky. He whispered, "If only they knew what it costs." Then his phone buzzed. It was a message from the building in chapter 1. The same place that had erased him. They wanted him to speak there. To the young applicants. To the managers. To the hallway. He stared at the message. Time was calling him back to the scene of the wound. And this time he would walk in on purpose. The hallway looked the same. Bright lights, glass walls, polished floors. But he was different. They placed him in a small room at the end. Chairs filled up quickly. Young people arrived holding dreams like heavy bags. Some looked tired already. Some looked scared. Some looked like they were trying to look confident. A manager introduced him with a proud voice, as if the place had always supported him. He didn't correct them. He stood and looked around slowly. "I was here before," he said. "I stood in this hallway while names were called. Mine was not." A few people shifted in their seats. "I left that day feeling like my life was over," he continued. "Not because I was weak, but because I believed a lie. He paused. The lie is this: that time decides your worth. Silence held the room. Time doesn't defeat a person, he said. People quit when the world stops clapping. He saw someone swallow hard. Someone blink fast. Someone nod slowly. I failed many times, he said. I failed in public. People laughed. People forgot me. But I kept building anyway. Quietly, carefully, again and again. He took a breath, then ended with the sentence that felt like a closing door and an opening one at the same time. If only I knew earlier that being late is not the same as being done. When he walked out into the hallway, he saw a screen flashing names again. This time, he didn't look for his. He looked at the people waiting. And for the first time, he understood the true ending. Time never forgot him. He only stopped asking time for permission.